God bless you. I am Bishop Jerry Maynard, and this is Sunday Night Live. We come on every Sunday night at 6 p.m., and we have had some great discussions relative to things which are occurring within our community and around the nation. As a matter of fact, even inclusive of this world. I am glad to be here tonight because this is a special night, and it happens to be Father's Day. And having this being Father's Day, there is a discussion about fathers which has been going on for the past 3 or 4 days, and hopefully it will not end up on tonight because fathers are extremely important at all times. And I have with me 3 of my children who are here to discuss. And it's interesting to say children because of the maturity that they have. And they have children, so not only am I a father, I am a grandfather, and I am a great grandfather. And so it is good to know that they are here. They're in the body of Christ. They're doing things for the Lord, and we are serving the Lord together right here in the city of Nashville. I have a son in Atlanta, Georgia, who is working extremely hard in his own business and attending things there. But so I'm glad that you could come in with us on tonight and join us in our discussion. I feel that our discussion is going to be extremely well, and we look forward to sharing with you and also giving to you an opportunity. If you have any questions that you would like to ask of us on tonight, you can do that, and we will respond to those questions as they come in. But we have several topics that we want to talk about, and I'm going to start to my far right and ask my son Mike to introduce himself, and then his brother is going to introduce himself, and finally his sister. God bless you, Mike.
Good evening. I'm Michael Maynard. I am the middle son. Really enjoy these opportunities to speak about fatherhood as an individual, but also my relationship with my father. He's a great father, has been forever, a great father to the community, which is where I see him serving now, and has given me an opportunity to also be a servant within the community. Thank you, Dad.
Amen.
I'm Jerry Maynard II, and even though I'm the firstborn, my sister beat me to making you a grandfather, and I'm very proud of her on that, and maybe made you a great-grandfather first, too. And so I'm also proud of that. I'm proud, Dad, of being your son. Just when I look at Michael, David, Misha, and I, what you taught us, how you raised us, and the fact that we love you so much. And we're here. I mean, and I think that speaks volumes. And I just think that we're so just blessed to have you, and also blessed to celebrate you.
And I am Misha Maynard, and so I'm excited to be here. And I am the only girl. And as Jerry spoke, I did beat everyone to making you a grandfather. But I do want to give corrections because we are in the house of the Lord, and it is Sunday. That actually Jerry is the one who made you a great-grandfather first. And that's on record at the birth certificate's office. If you want to contact vitalrecords.com, you can find out that. But I also wanted to say, Dad, while we're here, as my brothers have spoken, you have been a great father, a great role model, someone we can pattern our lives after. But I thought maybe before we get started into really discussing the things that we can have some clarity, and you can go ahead and let them know that I'm your favorite child, and it's okay. No, I'm just kidding. I know. I know you love us all the same. But anyway, I thought maybe I'd get a shot in. Since Jerry said that I was the one who started everything, I just wanted to make sure that he knew the reason why. It's because of all the love that has been coming this way. I just wanted to give the love back. But, but no, Dad, happy Father's Day, and we are excited to be here.
Thank you so very much. We had a great dinner together today. Dr. Mary T. Maynard, my wife, was with us along with, we just had a great time today here and with dinner, and I was asked, what do you really want for Father's Day? And the thought came to me that if I could just have all of us together to eat together as we have done in the past, that would be a great opportunity for us to share. And it's just good to know that we are not at odds, that all of us were together. And one of the things we want to share tonight is how do we continue in the posture of being close to each other and understanding that God has blessed us to be of the not just blood, but also to understand things together, particularly those things that God would exact for us to understand and to adhere to godly principles. But here we are, all three of us are involved in ministry, and sometimes fathers have children and none of them are involved in ministry, but we're all involved in ministry, and God is perfecting things in our lives. So I'm just glad that we are here tonight to share. And I believe that there are some questions that may be asked of me, and I'm going to ask the evangelist Maynard, who says she's the favorite, but all my children are favorite.
That's a good answer, Dad. Thanks for that one. Yeah, so we all have questions that we want to maybe ask and that you can share with them. From my perspective, there was a point in your fatherhood where you were a single parent rearing a daughter and a young son, our younger brother David. And so before being a single parent, father, and being at home with children, it wasn't popular at that time. A lot of, nowadays it's okay, it's not really like foreign. But can you just talk a little bit about that? What was that like, having to be responsible for, the everything at one time?
Obviously, it was different because it put me into a role that I had not been in before, and neither did I think that I would be in. I understand women when they say that they had to try to be the father and the mother. Well, I was the father, and I was trying to act in a role as a mother as it pertains to some of the things that we assign to women, such as cooking, washing clothes, and ironing clothes, and keeping the house up together, and then also monitoring the activities of you, and at that particular time, David. It was interesting. I remember looking at you in particular. With David, it was easy about combing hair and brushing hair, but you, that was a whole lot different. And I wanted you to be able to go to school looking well and not looking as though you were out in the street somewhere trying to. I wanted you to look well. You were very much active in things of school. You always have been studious. You were actively involved in gymnastics and cheerleading and other extracurricular activities of the school. And so it was different. It wasn't different in terms of prayer life because that goes on, but in terms of things, I can remember some other things that were first-time things for you that I did not know how to address myself to. But I thank God that we had some people who were willing to assist in that area. But I learned something about cooking. When you are a parent and you're cooking meals every single day, and you get tired of cooking the same thing over again yourself, and you know that your children have to be tired of eating. You got Monday a certain dish, Tuesday a certain dish, and you just, how many ways can I cook a green bean? How many ways can I fry chicken? What can you do? I never will forget, I had a roast that I put in the oven. I don't know how long a roast is supposed to be in the oven, and you're supposed to tenderize it and all that stuff. And I saw it was brown, and so it was ready. So I pulled it out. It was like cutting through leather. But anyway, so you learn these things over a period of time, and I praise God for that opportunity that I had.
Jerry?
Not only do you have fatherhood in the natural, but you also have fatherhood in the spiritual. And you have so many people who have come from, I would say, this tree, if you will, the branches. And, what do you say to those men and women as they are? What do you say to those men and women who you have touched their life and they have a family and they're trying to make it both in spiritual life, pastoring, but also family life? What do you tell all of these folks who you've influenced on how to be successful in both the church family and then the natural family?
Well, I would say that as far as the natural family is concerned, I am proud of all of you. I believe that God has blessed each of you in your own right to be successful. You have impacted the lives of other people. And that's what I was trying to do, and that was to give to you an understanding that life within itself is not what you do for yourself, but what you do for others and how you enhance the living standard of other people. That's always been my desire, that when I leave this earth, I want to leave this earth knowing that I have done something positive for other people to influence them. And I see you all, I'm proud of you all and where you are individually. And then people that I know that I have been with, talked to, tried to inspire, and to see them doing things that they're doing. I don't utilize the terminology that often of spiritual sons, but I do know that I have spiritual sons and spiritual daughters. And as a result, when I can look at them and see how they have progressed and are doing extremely well, that makes me feel good. And I would say to you, and I would say to those others who are not blood relatives, I would say to them, continue in the things of God and thank God for the positioning that He's given to you. And then whatever you do, don't ever forget that there's somebody who needs your help as you needed someone's help. I say this expression that I've utilized now for some time. Every Elisha needs an Elijah.
Well, Dad, I just wanted you to speak to the men out there about how to balance family life, business, and ministry.
Well, thank you. That's a very good question. Coming up, start pastoring when I was 22, and I was ordained as an elder in the church at the age of 17. And we were taught that it was God, it was church, and then family. And we treated it like that: God, church, family. We didn't know we were being taught the wrong thing, but we felt good because we spent most of our time, God, the church. You go to church, you're involved in church all week. On the weekend, everything was church. Sunday, we had church school. Then we had morning worship. Then we had afternoon program. Then we had YPWW. Then we had night service. Somebody would get happy and we go on until real late in the evening. And you did that, and you were at church. Monday, Bible band. Tuesday, church night service. Wednesday was sewing circle. Thursday was home and foreign mission. Friday was pastoral night. And Saturday was at our district meeting. And so we did all of that, thinking that we were doing the will of God, but we didn't realize that we was wreaking havoc in our homes and not there for our wives, not there for our children. But I tell you what, we were there for the church. But we learned after a while, at least I learned after a while, that it's God, it's your family, and then your church. You have to give ample time. I enjoyed coming home from work, and often I worked in Indianapolis, but I enjoyed coming home and playing basketball and throwing the ball and playing football, and we would race against each other. And I always hated to beat you all the time, but I was so good. I really didn't want to show you all up. You were my children. And I wanted
We can see the pain. We can hear the pain in your voice. How you just hated to beat us.
Don't tell him, Jerry, that we let him win. Don't tell him that part. But go ahead.
I just wanted you all to know that I was just happy to be there, and we could do all these things together, and it was an exciting time. But men who are in clergy need to understand that there needs to be ample time with family. There needs to be ample time with yourself. And then there ample time dealing with the things of the Lord. And then there needs to be a time of inclusivity where we do all things together. And sometimes it might be a trip that you take where you mix it up. It's a trip perhaps that's a leisure trip, but at the same time, there might be something going on from a national level that has to do with church. So you may have 2 days where you just enjoy yourselves, and then 2 days you're addressing yourself to the ministry, that kind of thing. Same thing is true with the expenditure of money. We pastors have a tendency sometimes to give all of our money to the church and not give very much to our families. You cannot do that. Your family needs to be a family that's a leading family, not only in the church but in the community. And if the God we serve is the God who we say he is, then we ought to reflect that not only in our demeanor but in our appearance.
So, Dad, I do want to say to anyone who's out on Facebook land or in the social media platforms, you can feel free to ask questions. And then those who are in the audience, you can feel free to step to the microphone and ask questions. We'll try to bring those questions. You can ask them Bishop Maynard, and I believe my two brothers probably will answer some questions as well as far as fatherhood is concerned. So please reach out and let us know that. And then we also want to encourage you to share. If you're out on social media, go ahead and share and invite some other people to join in with this wonderful discussion. We know that our Father has pulled on a lot. So many people ask for the opportunities to meet with him and for him to drop nuggets and give them pearls of wisdom. And so this is a time that you can ask those questions, and we're going to give it to you for freebie. We decided that today we'll let you get this information for free. We don't know if that's going to be tomorrow. No, I'm just teasing. So just make sure you do that. And I do see that we have someone that's at the microphone that has a question.
Good evening, everybody. This is Elder Lawson, and I'm enjoying this. At what time, this is for Bishop, and I guess each and every one of you all, since you all are parents, as your children matriculate into adulthood, how do you let go in terms of not being overbearing, not trying to, sometimes they may not come to church as often as you would like. How do you strike a balance in allowing them to be themselves as adults and still trying to parent?
Well, I'll let them answer. I'll make one statement. That is that you have to look at yourself. How were you when you were growing up, and how overbearing did you want your parents to be with you? If you can reflect upon that, because one thing is for certain, the Bible says, train up a child in the way it should go. When the child is old, the child will not depart from that training, whatever that training is. And so you have to relax. I believe that each one of my children had their time of doing what they felt that they wanted to do, whatever that was. And what your responsibility, in my opinion, is that at that point you pray, because here's the thing that we don't ever want people to think that it should be, and that is God is not looking at how many times you come into the church door. He's looking more at how often you adhere to his principles. What are his principles? And I'll stop because they may want to have something to say.
Well, I was one that couldn't wait to get out of the house so I could not have to go to church all the time. And so at the age of 18 to about the age of 20-something, I only went to church for funerals and weddings, and I rebelled. But Dad is right, because my parents raised me to know Jesus, to know God. At the times, I would call my father and call my mother because I felt that I didn't have the relationship that he would hear me, that God would hear me. But I was always reminded of that God loved me. And even though they did not approve of my lifestyle and decisions that I made, they continue to love me. To answer your question, you love them with all your heart, your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit. You love them and you pray for them. You pray for angels of protection over them. Hey, I know my kids are out there doing whatever they're doing. I send the angels right now in the name of, I'm just telling you what they did for me. And pretty soon, things happen. I've came to my senses like the prodigal son. I literally, like Misha preached the other day, I came to my senses, or today rather. I came to my senses, and when I came back, both my mother and father treated me, and they didn't beat me up and talk about everything I had done. They said, come on in. The Lord loves you. He's always loved you, and the rest is history. But if you see them out there, love them. And the other thing, too, is you gave them God. You know that you gave them the Word. You know you loved them. You know at some point in time, that which is rooted on the inside will be like fruit to come out.
I'm not answering.
Well, I'll deal directly with my children. What I had to do was understand that at a certain age and a certain level, they were not going to totally adhere to what I said. And so at that point, I had to fall back a little bit, and I had to give them a chance to express themselves a little bit more and trust that their expression was honest. And that's the hardest thing to do, because sometimes we think people are being influenced by the people around them, and we don't know how honest their expression is. But once you find that it's honest, you have to trust it, and that's what I've been able to do, and it's not easy.
The other thing is, always remember, your responsibility is not to cause them to be like you. Your responsibility is to cause them to be like Jesus. That's what the discipline is all about. And so they may not be like you, and we want them to be like us. You don't need robots in your family.
That's good. Bishop, there's a question that came from Facebook from Elizabeth Roan, and she would like you to share about blended family experiences, or anyone up here about blended family experiences.
Blended family experiences, two people get married, they already have children, and so they bring those families together. One thing is for certain, if you don't make preparations for such a mixture, it's not going to be easy towing. And I say that because you come in, first of all, you and your wife have two distinct personalities. And so you have to deal with that. Then you got children. Now, there's something about children, they cleave to their parent. And so you have to make sure that they know that they are welcomed not only in your house, but in your heart. And if they don't feel that they're welcomed in your heart, you're going to have entities diametrically opposed to each other, and it's going to be tough sledding to get out of that relationship what was desired when the families first came in. Now, and then there's the comparative analysis that you make. You may have reared your children in one way, and your newly found spouse reared her or his or her children in another way. And then you bring them together, and they'll start asking the question, why is it that Joe can do this and we cannot do that? And then the other issue comes, well, you really did reprimand so-and-so for doing this much more than you did that. And so you have that kind, so you have to be not, I don't want to use the word fair, but you have to be consistent. and whatever your rearing rules are, they need to be done with consistency. Whatever love you show, it has to be done with consistency. I have been where I've seen families where they go shopping, and depending upon which child it is, that one child will get something extremely well, but then the other person's child doesn't get much of anything. And you have to be careful that that is not the case. And then on the other hand, you have some children who will come in and say, "Ooh, I like Johnny," and the other children might not like Barbara Sue. And and so what has to happen is it's up to the couple that gets married to instill within the children that we are together and we have to mesh harmoniously. Now, the last thing I want to say is when you have a blended family, if it comes to the point where that each child who's coming from the other experience feels that they really genuinely appreciate and love that person, they can do that without saying that whoever their mother was, if it's a divorce situation or if it was a death situation, you don't have to come into the relationship saying, "That's my mother," or "You're my dad." If it comes to that, you can do that. But if it doesn't come to that, it doesn't have to. But respect can be shown for either parent, irrespective. Because sometimes people will say, "Well, that is, or she is my mother," or "She's not my mother," or he's my father, or "He's not my father." The issue is not whether that person is or is not your father and or mother, is whether or not you can respect the relationship that has now been forged by the coming together of the families.
One of the things I would say growing up that I appreciated and today I benefit from was a lot of the road trips that we took, because many times we would learn things in school, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but when we would learn things in school, you would take us on trips. We went to Washington, D.C., and we saw all the monuments that were there. We went to California by way of Springfield, and then down into New Mexico, and across Texas, and then back up to California, and then back across. But it exposed us to so many wonderful things in our lives. And so just wanted to ask you, how important was that for you at that time? Was that intentional? Was it, or was that just, you were just taking vacations?
Well, knowing me like I know you know me, I don't just do anything for happenstance. It was intentional. And the reason that I say it was intentional, because one thing that I was deprived of coming up as a child, one, I was not in a home with my father. My father and mother were divorced when I was 5. And so I did not have that experience of travel. As a matter of fact, we didn't have money to travel. Well, yes, we did. We could go across the street from time to time. But aside from that, we didn't have a whole lot to do. I was determined that you all would have the experience of travel to places that many young people would like to go to, or some who had already been. I wanted you to know what California was about. I wanted you to know what Washington, D.C. was about, because I had been there on numerous occasions, and I wanted you all to see the monument. I wanted you to see the nation's capital. I wanted you to see the halls of Congress, and I wanted you to experience that you can say that you knew that kind of history. Going to California meant several things to me, because we passed through many states, and you could at least say that you have been into those states. And then when you get to California and out at the Pacific Ocean, that you can say that you had been to the Pacific Ocean. To me, these things are part of history, and I wanted you to enjoy that. The other thing that it did was for several days of travel, we were in the same vehicle. And so we could learn how to share within that same vehicle, not only things, but also ideas and thoughts that we could project. And then I could learn more about you by traveling with you, because when you're in a car for a long time, whatever you're about is going to come out. Right. And so to me, it was also a teaching thing.
Jerry or Michael?
Oh, go ahead.
Question?
Oh, well, you have 4 children that have 4 complete different personalities.
No.
And I'm the only one that's right. So, but with all 4 different personalities, as far as being a father, you've got to manage knowing that they all have different temperaments and different points where maybe something that works for me doesn't work with Michael, or something that works with Michael to push his button doesn't work for me, and knowing that. And so, just talk about your experience in raising kids that have different personalities, different temperaments, maybe different motivational stuff that you had to do, and you may encourage a father who's dealing with that too, where the kids have different have just different traits and different personalities.
And then to also talk about when you forgot to spank Jerry that one time. That's the reason why we're dealing with some of those issues we deal with now. That one time that you forgot. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'm in the house of the Lord. And, I have to really strive hard to recall whipping any of you. I have to strive real hard
we can help.
I have to strive hard to come up with
which
that.
belt you use? Is that what you, color belt?
I like to talk to you and reason. The Bible says, "Let us reason together," and I like to reason.
They call it now reasoning.
Yeah. And so, but with each of you, we know where you are. You, Misha, would come home from school, go to your room, do all of your homework, everything you're supposed to do, and then when you finish that, then you would do other things that that's what you would do. Jerry would come home, and he's always looking to see why things are the way they are, what makes this clock work, what makes this television work, and he'd take the things apart and to find out why these things do what they do. But he'd put them back together, but he would take them apart. That was his psyche. And Michael was the type of person, if he had something to do, he would do that, and he would do it well, but he didn't need to bother him anymore about it. If he's supposed to be doing it, he'd go ahead and get it done, and when he got it done, if you left him alone, he would play or do whatever he was going to do, or he had friends that he would go and play with. David, on the other hand, was more, it appeared to me, David was more dependent. That is not to say he was dependent upon me all for instructions as much as he needed to know that I was there in support of what he was doing. And so all of you had things that you would do in your own right, and I understood that. I was leaving, going somewhere at one time, and the pastor, Dr. Maynard, took things when you said to him, he knew that you meant it, and he accepted it as such, and he was not going to do anything different from that, and nobody's going to make him do different from that. I said to him, I'm going to be gone for 2 or 3 days, and you are the head of the house while I'm gone.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Now, let's get down to it. Now we getting to it. Let's talk. Let's talk. Yeah.
And he let everybody in the house know.
Yes.
that Dad said, I am in charge. And he really meant that he was in charge. Now I don't know if he was 10 or 12 years old. I don't know what the age was.
He was 2. He was 2 or 4.
But that's, but you have to understand those personalities even today. And so each of you in your own right bring a lot to the table. And I acknowledge that. What is it that makes a person tick? A parent needs to know what makes a child, who that child is, and how to get the best out of that child. And I try to do that in our experiences. And as I said when we first started, what we're talking about today, when I see you all where you are and what you're doing, it makes me proud to know that things that were taught way back when, they are now being expressed, exercised, and implemented in your lifestyles.
Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. It's more of a, I think something that maybe can help us all out a little bit. How were you able to manage some of the maybe, for lack of a better term, the disappointments and maybe some of your children who maybe, as Jerry stated before, maybe strayed away a little bit, even though it may not have been something that was catastrophic, but something that you knew that they knew better? And did you take it personal, or how were you able to manage those emotions when we strayed away?
No, one, I did not take it personal. However, there's extreme concern because, as I said, I want all of you to do well, and the extent to which you could do well was contingent upon many factors. One primary one would be prayer. I did pray for you all, was concerned about you, and I did pray that God would bless you to turn from some of the things that you were doing so that your life would be enhanced and that you can become, whether a role model or not, but someone unto whom others could look. But one of the things that parents have to do, and I did, I was taught that by God. It was not something that all of a sudden I learned, but I had to understand that my life has not been a perfect life. I had to understand that I've had pitfalls. I had to understand that I had my ups and my downs, and you did too. Mine were not necessarily because I left the church and started doing things outside of the church. My problems came from within, having Christ in my life and yet not measuring up to where he wanted me to be, and God was a forgiving God for me. I had to be, as a father, a forgiving father for you. And if I could not operate in the posture of condemnation when God did not condemn me, rather God reached out to me and brought me to where I was supposed to be. And to me, that's my responsibility, and was my responsibility as a parent, to treat you in the same manner.
There was another question that came in, and the person wants to remain anonymous, but wants to know, what would you say to a father, parents of a blended family, where they feel like the other parents' children is disrespecting them? So there's a disrespect maybe in the parents. So.
Well, but that happens all the time, and that's what I made reference to when I talked about the blended family. That happens all the time. It's an unfortunate thing, but you see, both parents have to come to a resolve before. You see, there's no sense of getting married and then trying to do it. You need to come to that resolve before. And sometimes it works and sometimes it does not. But you have to always make sure that you're in the place where you are supposed to be. And you have to let children know that there is a certain amount of respect that you have to give to that spouse. If it's the husband who has to do it, he needs to let the children know you will respect my wife. And if it's on the other side, that mother needs to let those children know you're gonna have to respect my husband. I mean, and it has to be done. And you don't take anything less than, because respect has to be given. And often it's not given because if I just completely ignore, turn my head to it and say, okay, hey, it doesn't make any difference. But it's difficult for you to love greatly your father and then dislike his wife, or it's difficult for you to love greatly your mother, and she's married to this man, and you completely hate that person. Things happen in relationships that cause you to feel a certain way, and you say, I don't feel close to. It's yours to respect, whether there's that proximity that may be desired by the parent. It's your responsibility to respect who your father and or mother is married to. Now, if that person is doing something on a continual basis that drives you away and says, I don't want your respect or anything, that's one thing. But some people, children just don't like the fact that their father married somebody or that their mother married somebody else. It's difficult for them to deal with that. So you have to look at that, but at the same time, you must teach them that love. We dealt with Love Dare today, and there's a posture of love that cannot come through filial, it cannot come through amorous, but it only comes through agape, the love that God gives to you, which is love that's unconditional, and that is the love that you need to reach unto in order to bring things together in a so-called divided household. And you, first of all, you're divided when you first get married. There's division. And so what can bridge that gap? Well, I'm going to tell you what, humanly, sometimes it's almost impossible. But through God and agape love, it is possible.
So just wanted you to know, Dad, that and Jerry and Michael, that David is watching, so he's on Facebook. So did you want to say something to him, Dad, while he's out there on Facebook land?
Well, David, we've been talking about you a little bit, not a whole lot, but David was always a person who had to compete with his older brothers, because he was the last boy in the family, and he had to compete with them, and he tried his best to do so, but being who they are, it helped him, in my opinion, to assume the posture where he is today, because we have, and this has not been discussed, but it is somewhat of a competitive family. When I say that, I don't mean that we are against each other's throats and all that, but we are somewhat competitive. And if you don't believe it, let us play basketball back in the day, or any of those kinds of things. And because all of us are athletic, I know I look athletic now, and I know that. I know I look, I know that.
And you do.
I know I do. But anyway, we all did that, and David was good. David's very smart, and sometimes if David, if he wanted to do something, he could. If David wanted to make straight A's in school, he could. But if he didn't, he didn't. Quite creative. David's quite creative, even today. He's quite creative today, and I appreciate him much. He's the youngest of them, and he has a lot going on, and we love you, David.
And you let him get away with more.
I did what?
Let him get away with more.
Well, he was the youngest. He was.
David is the only sibling I know that came home and told you that they didn't hand out report cards, and you believed him. I mean, growing up, we were told that we could not be average children. You didn't raise average children. You don't come home with anything. You didn't have a C. It would have to be a B, and it really needed to be an A. You would accept some Bs. But David told you that he didn't even get a report. Dad, we didn't get report cards this time. And you believed him. I couldn't believe that you believed him.
Why are you telling off on your brother? Why are you telling your brother's business?
I just wanted to share how
But you know I'm not going to respond to that.
That little lopsided there. But no. So Dad, I just asked a question. No, we just have like 15 minutes left. But if you could share something with your younger self, if you could give pearls of wisdom to your younger self concerning fatherhood and just concerning just in general, what would you share with your younger self to make sure that you are successful?
I would look at my life, and I think that I did well in school, but I think I would be more studious, and by that I mean not concern myself about the grades that I made, because I did all right, but I would concern myself about the content more so. I would allow myself to engage God even more than what I did. I grew up in the church, but I would want more of the principles of the Lord, because I saw a whole lot of the organizational side and administrative side and the preaching side of the church, and I would bring myself to understand what it really meant to be a child of God and have God in my heart, to at least be the complete example. I talk about my grandfather all the time. I know no one that I've ever met who I felt was more saved, more consecrated, more of a Christian, a follower of God than my grandfather. And I mean, his testimony, he doesn't have a testimony of doing a whole lot of things on earth other than the fact that everybody say he was a righteous man. That's a great testimony. Enoch walked with God and did not die because he had a testimony, and that testimony was that he pleased God. I would like to do things as it relates to have done that. From a father's side, as it relates to preparation for children, since I was in a home where I didn't have a father from the age of 5 on, and I can remember even at an earlier age, he was in and out. I didn't learn a lot of those father principles that one should. Being a father to me back at that time meant making sure you all had not only what you needed, but what you wanted, and giving you things that I did not have, and all those. I would have learned some things. I was blessed of God to one pastor at church at a very early age. I worked for the government at a very early age, called upon to speak in different places, involved in civil rights, all those kinds of things that I had. I think that I would be more attentive to the things that God had given to me than I was, and not be so far out in terms of doing multiples of things. We call it multifaceted, but sometimes that's not good for you. Sometimes you need to narrow your scope, and I think I would narrow my scope to some extent.
Well, Michael and Jerry, do you all have any more questions? And then we'll give Dad the last thoughts.
Sure. I do have a question. Dad, as it pertains to the community, the Christian community, what do you think that we can do as a whole to encourage more fathers to be involved in their children's lives, to move as we move into this next paradigm? What can we do as a church to encourage that growth in our men, and as you've done, and where do you think we stand with that, and how can we go forward?
Well, we need to we have a men's department here at the church, and the thing that we need to do is continue to teach the principles of manhood and fatherhood at this church, so that the Bible says that a person who would not provide for his house or his home is worse than an infidel. We need to teach principles where men are attentive to their children, pay attention to their sons. Let sons know that it's all right to be human. If there's a situation where that tears come to a young man's eyes, that he should not be looked upon as being weak, but those tears should show strength more than weakness. We try to make men out of young boys when we need to let them be who they are so they can grow and mature. We need to do that here at this church and within the community. Have different kinds of conferences. We used to have a men's conference at this church with some degree of regularity and bring people in who have shown themselves to be. I look at each of you and where you are and what you're doing and how you can help us to do that. Your older brother went to college. He didn't go to college because he had all the money to go, but he went to college because he had a desire to go. And he went to college, graduated, came out as an attorney, passed the bar in Ohio, passed the bar in Tennessee. He can talk to them concerning the things that he has done that has made him do well. I'm talking about having those kinds of conferences here at the church. You, on the other hand, in your own business and the things that you've learned as an entrepreneur, you're into sports, you like it, you've been a coach, a trainer, and all those things, so you like that. In other words, everybody doesn't have to be the same, and we need to show men that. Everybody's not going to be an attorney, that kind of thing. We have a mister, on the other hand, who has her own business and work real hard here at the church as a COO, showing that a woman's ministry doesn't have to be defined to just doing the things that we have women do in church, but women can exercise the gifts that God has given to them at the level that God wants them to. Teaching young men those kinds of things and how to appreciate people, how to appreciate women. A lot of men don't appreciate women, and we need to do that. We need to let them know that being godly does not mean that you don't know what's going on in your environment and how to navigate and negotiate within your environment. Those kinds of things need to be done. And we can do that. I like teaching more than I do the preaching. The Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It didn't say you shall know the hoop, and the hoop will make you free, or the holler, and the holler will make you free. It says you shall know the truth, and the truth needs to be taught. We have all this stuff going on in the world today because people have not the truth. They're misguided in the teachings of the Bible. They're misguided in the teaching of ethics and all those things. And it's up to us, those of us who have been here. We live in a land, particularly in the church world, where there's an absentia of fathers within the church. All the fathers in the church are yet trying to act as though that they're young. But there has to be some fathers in the church who will reach out to the youth and say, these are the kinds of things that you can do. These are the kinds of things that you should do. And this is how you can do it.
Jerry, can you take the last question? And we got about 5 minutes left.
Okay. So when you are talking with other fathers and other parents, what is the one key thing you would give them, not about so much raising others, but how do you stay mentally, emotionally, and spiritually healthy? Because if you're being drained and pulled out all the time, how do you keep your cup full so that you in turn can continue to be the father figure, how do you keep yourself full? How do you maintain yourself? How do you make sure you're all right? Because a lot of, as you said before, if you're doing church, or work, as a father, a lot of times we feel like our only job is to provide. And we may not be spiritually, emotionally healthy, and because we just feel like our job is just to make sure stuff gets done. So how do you, if you gave advice, how do you make sure people stay full and so that they don't run out of gas?
Well, one of the things I do, I invite God as a partner. And as a partner, he helps me and he teaches me how to expend energy, to expend thought, to develop thought. And I listen to him in that regard, and I know how far to go and how far not to go. I want to just make this point. When you are involved in doing things and people are drawing upon you all the time, it is extremely important to have a house that you go to and a place that you call home, and have someone in that home who can relate to you and what you are about. The worst thing that you can do when you've been pulled here and pulled there and you're giving advice here and you're giving advice there is to go home to a wife or to a woman, and that person is without understanding of what you are doing and how much you're drained, but also is willing to listen to you from time to time about some of the frustrations that you may have as a result of what you have been doing. And to that extent, Dr. Mary T. has been very good to me in helping me to calm, cool down, and settle. Because if I walk in and there's a certain expression on my face or a certain gait by which I walk, she will say to me, "What happened?" And I'll say, "Why are you asking me that question?" And she says, "By the way you walk or the expression on your face." You need that. You need people praying for you, constantly praying for you. I don't, at this particular time, let anybody take all of me. Because if they take all of you, you are not anymore. And people will take all of you and then forget about you when you're gone. And so I did that once in this great church of ours. But I'm not talking about Cathedral of Praise, I'm talking about the national church. I will not do it again, because for the most part, people don't appreciate what you give of yourself. But I can thank God that I can say that when I see you all, that helps me to keep driving. When I see what you have come to, that helps me to keep driving. When I see people that come to me and say, 5 years ago you helped me, 10 years ago you blessed me. When I hear those kinds of things, that causes me to get even more energy. And at the age that I am at this particular time, I've been running for Jesus a long time, and I haven't got tired yet.
Well, we thank God for what you shared, and we thank everyone who has participated, whether you are in the sanctuary or you are on our social media platforms. We appreciate you so much for joining in and giving the opportunity for our Father to continue to share with you, to love on you, and then for us to have an opportunity just to ask him questions. A lot of times you may have questions that you wanted to ask or know a little bit more about him, and maybe you didn't feel comfortable asking them, but we felt like we could maybe ask those intriguing questions, and that you would give pearls of wisdom to them. So thank you all so much for joining. Father knows best. And Dad, take us out. You got 24 seconds to say something to the people out there as we leave on tonight.
Thank you so very much. And as you all can see, I'm yet being told what to do. So with these few seconds left, thank you all for being with us. And remember this, we may not be in the same place, but we are where you are.